Lovesick Conspiracy by Prologue. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting ominous shadows over the sprawling estate, a fortress of depravity owned by the rich and powerful. Laughter echoed through the lavish halls as the elite sipped opulent cocktails, poker chips clinking like prison bars, their wealth formed from the suffering of others. Tonight, a different type of entertainment awaited them, one that would plunge unsuspecting souls into darkness. Wrapping their hands around their crystal flutes, they smiled as the denizens of despair were prepared for a fate worse than death, becoming pawns in a brutal game, ripped from their lives for the enjoyment of those who held their strings. Among them, two unwilling players would have no idea that their paths were set to collide in this world of lethal gladiators, where every moment teetered on the razor-sharp edge of survival. Scene 1. A glimpse of the elite. The grand ballroom of the Paragon estate shimmered with extravagant chandeliers, their crystal prisms refracting light like 100 mini-suns. Underneath the gilded arches, voices hummed with a dissonance that hinted at something darker, an undercurrent of tension that pulsed through the laughter and clinking glasses. Outside, dark clouds loomed over the estate, threatening a storm that mirrored the anxiety brewing within the elite gathering. "Is it ever going to rain?" asked Sylas Archer, adjusting his cufflinks as he leaned casually against a polished marble column. His gaze flitted over the sea of tailored suits and elegant gowns. There, amidst the opulence, he spotted Gwendolyn Frost, a thorn in the side of his well-laid plans. Her fierce demeanor seemed sharper than the diamond necklace glistening at her throat. "Does it matter to you?" Gwendolyn replied, her voice a mix of sarcasm and conviction. "Maybe the clouds are a warning that we should all be concerned about the storm brewing not just in the sky, but in our own hearts." She pushed back a loose strand of hair, her emerald eyes cutting through the superficial chatter around them. Sylas smirked. "Such an ominous view, Gwendolyn. But if we're truly facing stormy weather, I'd rather be inside sipping champagne than worrying about where to bury the bodies." Her expression hardened as laughter bubbled around them. They were surrounded by the high and mighty, who still found time to discuss investments and acquisitions, oblivious to the growing unease. A sudden gust of wind rattled the windows as if the atmosphere itself was trying to intervene in the evening's malevolence. "Don't forget, the bodies might be ours if we misstep," Gwendolyn countered, ignoring the elaborate spread of food arranged on silver platters. The waiter, a young man in a crisp white shirt, passed by with a tray of hors d'oeuvres. She took a small puff pastry, her resolve momentarily eased by the flaky comfort of it. Further down the aisle, the scene shifted with the arrival of Philip Hawthorne, a rival businessman known for his cutthroat tactics. He approached with his entourage, including Maya Green, a scheming socialite renowned for her charm and menace in equal measures. "Gwendolyn!" he boomed, as if her presence was a stage he had long awaited. "Have you heard the latest news? They're questioning our loyalty in the council meeting. Quite a scandal brewing." He gestured grandly, catching the attention of others within earshot. Maya leaned in and added, "Yes, loyalty is a fickle virtue among friends, a perfect recipe for treachery, wouldn't you agree?" Her eyes sparkled with mischief as she sipped her champagne, the bubbles flickering like deceptive light in the storm-darkened room. Across the ballroom, Thomas Graves, the general's stoic son, spun a tale of conquest to anyone who would listen. "I heard the council is planning a coup of sorts," he said, thickening the air with intrigue. "Every eye is fixed on Sylas. They say he's been meeting with people we can't trust." His heavy words were laced with personal animus, though he tried to mask it behind a veneer of camaraderie. "Bold move to point fingers, Thomas," Sylas interjected, feeling trapped under the weight of the room's conversations. Perhaps they should focus on the ground beneath their own feet. In the corner, Amelia Lake, Sylas's childhood friend, clutched a glass of wine. She exchanged frantic glances with Lucy Reed, who whispered, "Look at him, Amelia. Can't you see the storm stirring? He's too close to the fire. We have to decide if we're with him or against him. Or if we should avert our eyes altogether," Amelia said, swirling her drink, her brow knit with worry as she scrutinized their alliances forming and fracturing at a dizzying pace. Meanwhile, Sylas caught Gwendolyn's intense focus, realizing their shared concern threaded deeper than the atmosphere of the gala. "You're right. Tones of loyalty mean nothing if a storm sweeps us away," he said softly, allowing a moment of vulnerability as their surroundings fell into blurred focus. "And when the rains come?" Gwendolyn's breath caught for an instant before she turned back to the gathering, determination hardening her features. "We'll need allies. Egos and secrets will dictate who survives." A low rumble echoed among the guests, a prelude to the storm that would soon break, both outside and inside the gilded walls. Sylas and Gwendolyn exchanged a look steeped in intention, a spark igniting just as the thunder roared, enveloping them in an impending darkness. Whatever lay ahead, they were poised at the brink, ready to uncover the truth hidden beneath the surface. "Let them bring the storm," Sylas said as the wind howled, rattling the chandeliers and shaking the very foundations of their world. Scene 2. The game's inception. The dimly lit room rattled with whispers. Shadows of the council members danced across the granitic walls, a precarious reflection of their intentions. The air thickened as Victor Hale leaned forward, his brow creased with impatience. "What's stopping us from initiating the game tonight? We've waited long enough." His hand, adorned with a sleek silver ring, drummed against the weathered oak table. Across from him, Lydia Morris, a poised woman with an inscrutable expression, lifted a finger to silence the room. "Repercussions! You can't just unleash chaos without ensuring it serves our purpose." She shifted in her seat, her emerald eyes glistening like polished stones, catching a glimpse of the minds around her. Donovan, the council's muscle, interjected, his voice low and gravelly. "6 players will drop like leaves in the wind. That's the thrill. We'll see who's clever enough to survive." "Cleverness is all well and good," Lydia remarked, leaning back, her posture delicate yet regal. "But the players must act out of desperation. We need them to fight, not merely survive." She offered a slight smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. The tension in the room became palpable as Victor raised an eyebrow. "And if they decide to ally, they can be just as dangerous together." "Then we introduce an element they can't anticipate," Lydia countered coolly, an intensity simmering beneath her calm demeanor. "Pride, greed, reality itself. Watch as their alliances fray." Across the room, a clock ticked loudly, each second echoing like a heartbeat. Hope McKinley, the quietest member of the council, adjusted her glasses and spoke up, her voice stuttering slightly but filled with a nervous energy. We have to consider the optics, control the narrative, use their fears. If the public sees them as pawns, we control the conversation." The visceral thrill of the impending chaos hung in the air, a diabolical electricity. Victor glanced around, consuming the sonic tension, eager to capitalize on it. "What if we orchestrate a public viewing? The first live spectacle of survival. Ratings will skyrocket." Lydia's eyes narrowed. "You're thinking too small. We lean into the horror. Let's amplify the fear that grips the nation." She unconsciously smoothed a hand over her silk dress, a gesture laden with tension that betrayed her desire to wield authority. Before anyone could respond, the door swung open, revealing Jessup Klein, a wild-eyed strategist who thrived on subterfuge. "The players are already being selected," he announced with a gritty enthusiasm that stirred the group. "They've kicked the game into high gear, and there's no turning back." "Good," Victor declared, folding his arms defiantly. "Then let's discuss the thrill of watching them scramble for survival. Who knows, perhaps one of them will surprise us." Across town, Sylas Archer sat in a crowded coffee shop, the aroma of rich espresso cutting through the din. He tossed a glance at Gwendolyn Frost, seated diagonally, fiercely scribbling in a worn notebook. Her thoughts pulsed through her pen, and for a moment their gazes clashed, message unspoken. "Are you always going to brood over that paper? Maybe try a social life instead," he teased, a hint of humor softening his sharp features. She shot him a sidelong glance, her voice dry as the page she was scrawling on. "I'm contemplating societal decay. You wouldn't understand." "What's the point of contemplating if it only leads you to dark places?" he responded, leaning closer, intrigued. "Maybe you need some distraction." "Distraction is our downfall," she retorted, yet her lips twitched, betraying amusement. "You've got that right about you, Sylas. Perfect for this charade." A silence stretched between them, electricity crackling in the dense, coffee-infused air as they both felt the weight of the game looming, eager to pull them into its suffocating embrace. In the back of the council room, Donovan chuckled, an unsettling sound. Let's see who starts the bleeding first. His gaze, dark and flickering with ambitions unknown, simmered with predatory instinct. Indeed, Lydia replied, a smile creeping onto her face, revealing a tantalizing glimpse into her own grim pleasures. And let the games begin. As the room pulsed with sick excitement, the council was aware of a heartbeat beneath their plotting one that throbbed with fate already in motion, with sparks of rebellion tingling in the air. Scene 3. Meeting the players. The cavernous room hummed with tension. A flickering overhead light cast erratic shadows across the faces of 12 captives, fingering their secrets and fears. Gwendolyn Frost sat cross-legged on the cold, hard floor, her keen blue eyes searching for the familiar tilt in a friend's brow that might signal a silent understanding. Her chestnut hair fell in waves around her shoulders, framing a face etched with both determination and vulnerability, strands sticking to her cheeks, damp with sweat. "So what's your plan?" Josiah asked, his tone light, yet laced with a thread of desperation. The wiry man shifted nervously, glancing around as though the very walls might betray them. Gwendolyn sighed, biting her lip as she steeled herself. "We need to be strategic, Josiah. If we act recklessly—" She paused, letting the silence echo unsettlingly. "It'll cost us more than just our lives. It's about survival now, against them and each other." Muffled laughter broke the mood as the silver-haired Marcus chimed in from across the room, reclining with nonchalant bravado. "You sound like a general. What's next, a catchy war slogan?" He cracked a sardonic smile, revealing an unexpected camaraderie amidst the gloom. The others chuckled, a fragile humor threading its way through the weight of their predicament. "Yeah, I'd go with 'dying is for the weak.'" Lydia, her fiery red hair a stark contrast against the gray surroundings, grinned. Her voice carried a teasing melody, a waft of levity that was a balm to the heavy air. Gwendolyn welcomed the banter, though her heart thrummed with the weight of unformed plans. "You think it's funny?" she shot back, half-heartedly scolding, half-pleading for seriousness. "I just think if we're going to do this, we might as well lighten the mood," Lydia replied, mischief sparkling in her eyes. "Lighten the mood? We're literally in a death game." A new voice, deep and resonant, cut through the laughter. Sylas Archer stepped into the light, the air shifting with his presence. Dark-haired and sharp-featured, he embraced the shadows, finding refuge in their obscurity. Yet his compelling charisma radiated effortlessly, commanding attention. "What do you propose we do, then?" Gwendolyn's voice bore a challenge, acknowledging the overbearing tension that now coiled tightly between them. As she stared at Sylas, the confidence he exuded hovered at the edge of something deeper, more personal and frightening. He shrugged, a flicker of a smile dancing on his lips. "Run headfirst into danger, of course. Otherwise, where's the fun in losing?" Lydia snickered. "Now, that's the spirit. Thanks, Captain Obvious." A tense silence settled, filled with unsaid fears and suppressed thoughts, as eyes flickered toward Gwendolyn, gauging her response, waiting for direction. Outside, thunder rumbled, claps of ominous nature mirroring the tremors in their stomachs. "Enough joking around, Sylas," Gwendolyn said, the intensity in her voice grounding them. "We need to find out who or what is orchestrating this. If we can gather intel, it might give us an edge." "Or land us in a trap," he countered, the glint of mischief still present in his eyes, but his demeanor dropped into seriousness. "Then let's be clever about it," Gwendolyn replied, voice steady yet tinged with an undercurrent of fear. "We'll probe their game, while keeping our own secrets guarded." From the back of the room, a soft voice piped up, cutting through the escalating tension. "Can we at least check the pantry first? I haven't eaten in." "Enough with food, Jonah?" Marcus interrupted loudly, shaking his head. "You'll survive much longer without snacks than you will without a plan. Except I'm going to starve if all we do is plan." Jonah's reply was muffled in the growing chaos, his need for sustenance drowned out. And there, unburdening herself through the clamor, Gwendolyn found a flicker of solidarity amid their shared woes. The unyielding determination of others enveloped her, tempting her vulnerabilities to surface. As arguments broke into vibrant exchanges and raucous laughter, Gwendolyn caught Sylas's gaze. The warmth there ignited something profound within her, a longing to connect with the enigmatic figure amidst the struggle for survival. She felt an uneasy quiet in her heart, as if a door sat ajar, inviting risk. "Fine, but I'm collecting opinions while we discuss food," she said, a trace of a smile escaping her lips, holding on to the fleeting moment before the game's reality clawed back. "Why not? It beats planning for imminent doom," Sylas replied, easing the knot in her chest with his effortless flicking humor, a shield against the shadows hounding them. The laughter erupted anew, echoing within the walls like new life challenging despair, the camaraderie a beacon of hope amidst their looming fates. Each face carried stories unspoken, vulnerabilities concealed like glass shards beneath the surface. As tensions ebbed momentarily into laughter and light, they were reminded they were not mere pawns. They were players, interwoven, with darkness swimming beneath every clever banter. And Gwendolyn couldn't help but wonder, what alliances awaited to be forged, and at what cost? Scene 4, Unwanted Awakening. The cold, sterile air filled Sylas Archer's lungs as he stirred awake, the sharp tang of metal slicing through the remnants of a fading dream. He blinked against the harsh light, gaze darting around the stark, metallic enclosure. The arena felt alive, the gleaming walls reflecting shadows like ghostly specters whispering in conspiracy. Confusion flooded his senses. The cacophony of muted roars echoed from unseen crowds. This was no ordinary awakening. He pushed himself to sit, his muscles protesting against the heavy inertia of whatever bizarre slumber had held him captive. His heart raced. The adrenaline coursed through his body like an electric current. This was an arena, and he was a prisoner of a deadly game, each moment ticking with the promise of violence. Gwendolyn Frost stirred beside him, her brow furrowed with dreams turned nightmares. Her vibrant auburn hair spilled across the floor, catching the light and igniting a brief spark of beauty amidst the chaos. Sylas felt a flicker of warmth among the turmoil. She blinked, bewildered, eyes narrowing as she took in their surroundings. "Where are we?" she asked, her voice a determined whisper, but it trembled on the edge of panic. Sylas hesitated. The weight of unspoken truths hung between them, thick and suffocating. "I don't know, but we need to figure out what's happening. Fast." Suddenly, the oppressive silence shattered with the haunting roar of a mic. Blaring over unseen speakers, it felt like an omnipresent overseer, watching, judging. "Welcome, players. The game begins now." Gwendolyn clenched her fists, a sharp inhale punctuating the air. "This can't be happening. We need to get out." Sylas wrestled with his instinct to comfort her and the icy grip of survival instincts. His own guilt clung to him like a shroud. "The first step is to understand the rules, Gwendolyn. We're in this together, whether we like it or not." For a fleeting moment, a tremor of vulnerability crossed her features. "Together? You don't even know me." "Maybe not," he replied, stepping closer, the space between them palpable, charged with a tension that tugged at something deeper. "But I know enough about survival." Before she could respond, a shadow loomed in their peripheral vision, disrupting the brief moment of connection. 3 other participants emerged from the darkness, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and hostility. Tension thickened like fog. "Looks like the players are waking up," one sneered, his dark eyes glinting with menace. "What's the plan, pretty boy?" Sylas dismissed the threat, maintaining focus on Gwendolyn beside him. "Stay close. Don't engage unless necessary." He tried to infuse his voice with authority, but a trace of doubt seeped through the cracks. But Gwendolyn wasn't one to be pushed aside. "I refuse to cower in a corner. We want to find a way out too, so if you're coming for us." "No one is coming for anyone, sweetheart," the antagonist interjected with a laugh, his voice sleazy with mockery. The other participants shared wary glances, their collective unease buzzing. In that instant, as the atmosphere crackled, Sylas turned to Gwendolyn, their faces inches apart in urgency. "We need a distraction," he murmured, feeling the pulse of determination beneath her skin flicker like flame. "I can make that happen," she said, a surge of fierce defiance igniting her spirit. The subtle confidence in her posture drew him closer, the unyielding strength forging an electric connection that left both breathless. As they moved in tandem, the external world began to fade. The other players' jeers dimmed into the background like echoing shadows. The pull between them intensified, but they both knew the mountains of distrust, secrets buried under layers of chaos. "Let's do this together." Sylas hesitated, his forehead brushing her cheek, warmth spilling forth, igniting a cascade of instincts. No matter what comes next. Realizing every moment was a dance on the precipice, they shared a fleeting glance, and in that charged second they crossed an unspoken threshold. He leaned in, tracing the line of her jaw with his breath. It was fraught with everything unspoken, the taste of risk flavored with urgency. Their lips met, a brief, electric connection that ignited sparks across their skin, dissolving the chaos enveloping them. Then a voice echoed through the arena, startling them both back to cold reality. "Game rarely takes prisoners, dear Sylas and Gwendolyn." They pulled apart. Lingering connection faded into the bitter chill of survival, now marked by a kiss that had hinted at desperation, laced with vulnerability and tinged with the promise of rising flames in a tempest of darkness. "Let's move," Gwendolyn said, a steely determination glimmering in her gaze. "We'll be the ones calling the shots." Together, they stepped into the unfolding chaos, ready to face whatever dark game lay ahead. Scene 5. Formation of sides. The room buzzed with anxious energy, a charged undercurrent that coursed through the air like an electric storm. Sylas leaned back against a rough-hewn wall, arms crossed, as Gwendolyn's sharp gaze swept across their fellow captives, assessing who would join them in the coming chaos. "What do you think? Are they allies or just as lost as we are?" Sylas mused, his voice low but rich with curiosity. Gwendolyn gave him a sideways glance, her brow furrowed. "It's hard to tell. You can't trust desperation. They could easily turn on us." As she spoke, the murmurs intensified. To their right, a group clustered together, whispering heatedly, faces taut with determination. Martin, a wiry man with a penchant for sarcasm, stood animatedly, gesturing toward Lily, a healer with a reputation for her quick thinking. "Listen," Martin said, voice rising, "if we're all going to die here, I'd rather go down fighting than waiting for the axe to fall. We need unity, not this cowardly half-heartedness." "Unity?" Lily replied, her arms crossed defensively. "You think shouting will change anything? We're trapped in a game designed to tear us apart." "Exactly why we should look out for one another," Martin retorted, hands slicing through the air for emphasis. Amidst this rising tension, Sylas leaned closer to Gwendolyn, an almost imperceptible distance closing between them. Her breath caught, a flutter of uncertainty rising over her confidence, yet she steeled herself. "Are you a wolf in sheep's clothing?" she asked, a teasing lilt to her voice as if testing the waters. "Wolf, hardly. More like an opportunist," he replied, his tone playful yet serious, a glimmer of self-awareness dancing in his eyes. "But if I were a wolf, I'd want a good pack." A moment passed, charged, overflowing with the unsaid, as their eyes locked, each searching for the truth masked beneath the facade. A slight shift in Gwendolyn's posture, the gentleness in her voice, and something unambiguous unfurled between them. Yet before they could linger too long in this intimacy, a sudden clash of voices broke the spell. "Are you with us or against us?" Carla shouted from the far side of the room, her voice breaking the tension like glass shattering on concrete. "Because I won't let a bunch of sheep decide my fate." Eyes darted toward the commotion. Carla was standing, a small woman with fierce determination that lit her features like flame. She had the air of a woman who had endured much, and though her approach was harsh, it resonated with the weary hearts around her. A murmur rippled through the crowd as factions began to form. It was a dance of human instinct, the strong versus the weak, the hopeful versus the cynical. "Let's not act rashly," Gwendolyn interjected, raising her hands in a calming gesture, trying to salvage the moment. "We need strategy, not chaos." "For once we agree," Sylas chimed in, his voice steady. "Maybe we should determine who has what strengths. Knowledge is power out there, and we've got to leverage it." Martin's brow rose in acknowledgement, his earlier bravado softening as he considered Sylas's words. "Fine, so what do each of us bring to the table?" Before the bickering resumed, Sylas gently touched Gwendolyn's arm, a simple act that silenced the chaos momentarily. "Gwen, you've got a knack for leadership. Lead this. Find out what makes each person strong and who's truly on our side." A flicker of gratitude danced in her eyes, but it quickly morphed into resolve. "All right, but we need to keep this quiet. The last thing we need is to invite our enemies to the table first." In the charity of this fragile alliance, something deep simmered just beneath the surface, a story not yet told, waiting to blossom amidst the pain. Sylas watched her as she spoke, an inexplicable longing stirring within him, a connection that felt profound in its simplicity. Yet, as they divided the alliances, Gwendolyn could feel the distance in the air, a breath of uncertainty lingering between the two. She prayed he wasn't hiding a dark past that might jeopardize them both. The game was afoot, and with it, unlikely friendships, and perhaps a bond deeper than just survival, awaited to unravel. "Be careful who you trust, Sylas," she finally whispered, aware that the cavernous gloom concealed untold dangers. "I don't want a dagger in my back when the light finally returns." Scene 6. Initial chaos. The arena sprawled before the participants, a patchwork of barren earth and shadows, the sun's harsh rays cutting through a haze of anxious anticipation. Thick, rusting chains dangled ominously from the center structure, a reminder of the power that held them captive. A crisp wind whispered through the scattered debris, wrapping around the players like a tightening noose. Sylas Archer stood at the edge of the crowd, his heart racing, a mixture of adrenaline and fear coursing through his veins. His posture appeared relaxed, but the nervous twitch in his fingers betrayed him. He scanned the faces around him, some were panicked, others defiantly vigilant. The scent of sweat mingled with the metallic tang of apprehension. "Are you ready for this?" Gwendolyn Frost asked, her voice steady, cutting through the chaos like a lifeline. Her brow furrowed with determination, revealing the strength that often masked her vulnerability. Sylas turned to her, surprised by the flicker of sincerity in her eyes. "I was born ready," he replied, attempting to inject a semblance of bravery into his tone. "Or maybe I just have a death wish. Does that count?" She smiled faintly, a crack in her strong facade. "Just stick close, okay? We'll figure this out." Before their moment could deepen, a blaring horn shattered the stillness, signaling the start of the first challenge. An electric current of panic rippled through the participants. Actors in this macabre performance, they became pawns in a violent game none had asked to play. A stocky figure burst forward, slamming into another player, and within moments, chaos erupted. The arena exploded with shouting and shoving, bodies colliding in a visceral dance of desperation. A cloud of dust erupted, obscuring the scene like a war-torn battlefield. Across the arena, Anton, a former boxer with a fierce reputation, lunged at a desperate female competitor, chasing her with manic intensity. He caught her by the collar, forcing her to her knees, a terrifying contrast to the way sunlight grazed the dirt around them. "Please don't," she gasped, her voice cracking. Anton paused, his expression shifting momentarily from menace to uncertainty as the crowd's adrenaline-fueled cries surrounded them. "Why not make it easy?" he prompted, his tone lightening slightly, though his grip remained firm. The contrast of his previously menacing presence faded in the chaos around him. Laughter erupted from a bystander, a brief release amid the heavy tension. Meanwhile, Sylas and Gwendolyn found themselves pushed back towards the dilapidated structure at the arena's core. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, the tumult of the arena faded into the background. Gwendolyn felt a warmth blossom inside her, a connection grounded in shared fear and determination. "Focus, Sylas," she urged, breaking the spell. "We need a plan." "Plan or not, we have to survive first," he quipped, but there was an edge of seriousness in his tone. The muted laughter of their peers reminded them of the absurdity of this violent circus, laughter dissipating in the instant it took a fist to land. Their shared resolve was taut like a wire, trembling with potential. The chaos swirled around them, explosive and violent, yet in that fray, they found each other's strength. As the dust settled slightly, they stumbled upon Lila, a soft-spoken artist, her hands trembling as she clutched a canister of paint. "What do I do? What do I do?" she spiraled, her voice breathy, soon eclipsed by a nearby shout. "Grab something," Gwendolyn shouted, trying to guide Lila amid the frantic energy, the winds of fate swirling around them. "Whatever you can use." "Shouldn't I be painting instead?" Lila retorted, her frightened eyes wide and glistening. Gwendolyn smirked. "Not quite the time for a gallery opening." Suddenly, from above, a loudspeaker crackled to life, cutting through the noise. "Participants, welcome to your impending doom. Survive, and you may yet see the sunrise again. Fail, and oblivion awaits. Let the games begin." A collective gasp swept through the crowd. The stakes were higher than ever, each person realizing the true weight of their circumstances. As Sylas locked eyes with Gwendolyn, a flicker of understanding sparked beyond fear. Are we really going to survive this? While figuring out who we can trust, she replied, her resolve like iron. It was chaos, yet within it a bizarre camaraderie began to bloom as they all dove headfirst into the storm. Scene 7. Facing the mentor. Gwendolyn's breath quickened as the shadows cast by flickering fluorescent lights played tricks on her mind. She paced the barren, cold concrete floor, anxiety clenching her stomach. A surreal revelation loomed. She could swear the figure in the corner was her former mentor, but the circumstances were unrecognizable. Here they were, bound by the sinister game that pitted them against each other, and yet she was inexplicably drawn to him. "Focus, Gwendolyn," she muttered, shaking her head as if it could dislodge the vivid memories of laughter and encouragement that followed her from years past. She had admired Mercer Knight, revered his wisdom, and taken his guidance to heart. Yet here he was, another pawn, lost in the chaos, perhaps even the enemy she never anticipated. Her heart raced with conflicting emotions. "Is that really you?" she called out cautiously, her voice echoing in the vacant space as she took a step closer. She could see the worn gray at his temples mingling with the slate of his suit. He hadn't changed much. He turned, and their eyes locked, a mixture of shock and recognition flashing between them, a silent acknowledgement of each other's past lives. "Gwendolyn," Mercer said softly, his voice hoarse with an emotion she couldn't quite decipher. "You shouldn't be here." "Shouldn't be here? Aren't you the one who taught me to fight for what's right?" She folded her arms, the boldness a fragile facade. Beneath it lay the tremors of old loyalties. "I thought I taught you to survive," he replied, the weight of unspoken truths hanging between them. "Look around. There's no right here." Her heart raced, not just from confrontation, but from the memories of late-night conversations in sunlit classrooms, the warmth of mentorship now turned chilling in the face of betrayal. "And yet you're part of this," she gestured, regret lacing her voice. "You helped build this madness, didn't you?" In that moment, the air shifted. The seriousness of their surroundings faded. It became a small bubble of intimacy amidst chaos. Gwendolyn could sense his vulnerability as a flicker of remorse crossed his face. "Sometimes," he said, his voice shaking, "you make choices thinking they're for the greater good. But then you realize you're perpetuating the very evil you sought to fight." She stepped closer, searching his eyes for clarity, for a thread of the mentor she once cherished. "Do you even recognize your own path anymore?" Before he could reply, the ground rattled beneath them, jarring Gwendolyn from her contemplative trance. This was bigger than them, and their moment was rapidly dissolved by the impending threat of the arena. Yet, the tension between them lingered like electricity in the thick air. She could feel her pulse quickening, an involuntary response as she caught his gaze lingering on her, a shock that pulsed deeply, stirring an unexpected longing. "Gwen, listen," he started, stepping forward, but it was too late. Every memory of training came flooding back, times where he'd reached for her hand as they practiced stances, moments filled with unspoken potential that linked them tighter than brother and sister. She felt drawn in, the risks of their surroundings falling away, leaving only that singular connection lingering ominously between them. "Mercer," she whispered, breath hitching in her throat. She could hear her heart thundering, drowning out the sounds of the game around them. The air thickened. He stepped closer, a magnet pulling her toward him, and she didn't resist. There, in the dim light of conspiracy and chaos, his hand brushed against her own, sending shivers along her spine. "I never meant for this. I never meant for any of this." His voice was softer now, filled with yearning, a vulnerability that felt foreign yet achingly familiar. And just like that, they bridged the volatile gap, a radiant yet fragile explosion of unspoken emotions mingling in the air. Gwendolyn leaned in, their lips just a whisper apart. The kiss was tentative at first, ignited by the shared burden of their experiences, swirling emotions, and the remnants of mentorship intertwined with passion and regret. In that moment, a world of reckoning spun around them, and her heart ached with the dizzying confusion of the past mingling with a fierce present. As Gwendolyn pulled back, blinking against the haze that clouded her judgment, she realized they were no longer just players in their twisted game. They were the architects of their choices, needing to redefine the rules. "Together or apart, we must decide," she said, her voice trembling, yet resolute. And I refuse to be a victim again. With that, she turned, where other players hustled into the dim corridors, tension building as their next move awaited them like a darkened abyss. Scene 8. Power Struggles. The air in the makeshift arena hung thick with a blend of sweat, fear, and whispered treachery, a palpable reminder of the stakes at play. Flickering overhead lights cast chaotic shadows, where fleeting alliances and bitter rivalries battled for dominance. Sylas Archer leaned against a rusted pillar, watching the flicker of emotions dance across faces around him. Desperation, pride, and reckless ambition. Each participant bristled with the unspoken urge to command the room, but it was Gwendolyn Frost who held his gaze, a storm brewing beneath her cool facade. "Look at them," Sylas murmured, eyes narrowed. "It's like hyenas circling a kill." The faintest hint of disbelief crept into his voice as he gestured toward a cluster of players dramatically debating a strategy. A young man with an insufferable air of authority boomed loudly, his words spilling over the collective anxiety like rotten fruit. "You're either with us or against us. We can't afford to play nice anymore." His voice, a jagged rock in the sandy landscape of uncertain loyalties, pierced through the churning atmosphere. Gwendolyn's brow furrowed as she weighed the implications of this claim. When did that become an acceptable way to live? "Allies can't just become scapegoats," she said, her tone sharp, yet vulnerable, hinting at a flicker of doubt she seldom let escape. Her eyes, icy and commanding just moments before, now flickered with hesitance tinged in shades of green. Or are we all just pawns to be discarded when it's convenient? Sylas stepped closer, feeling the crackle of her internal conflict. "You've always been above this," he said, practically whispering. "Don't let them drag you into their chaos." But she shook her head, the movement almost pain-filled. "You don't understand. When we're shoved into these situations, you have to adapt. Otherwise, you die." The finality in her voice resonated with an urgency that momentarily cut through the din. She averted her gaze from Sylas, scanning the crowds as if searching for something, perhaps hope, perhaps an escape from the suffocating tension. At the far end of the room, a group of players had gathered. Claire, Sylas's old ally, stood animatedly discussing rescue plans with Ben, her sharp eyes alight with the thrill of scheming. "If we can convince them to attack each other first, we can shift the power balance," Claire insisted, her laughter contradicting the grim setting. Ben shared a quick chuckle, the camaraderie infectious but fraught. Just then, a loud bang echoed from the entrance, turning heads like paper cuts in a tense environment. "Enough! If you want to talk about power, talk to me!" boomed Jack, brandishing a makeshift weapon. His charming smile from moments ago vanished, replaced by raw ambition and thirst. "I'm tired of playing games. Either we unite under my leadership or we'll be the next round of targets in this twisted game." The rhetorical question sliced through the air, escalating the tension in seconds. Sylas pinched the bridge of his nose, contemplating the potential chaos. Wanting to anchor Gwendolyn from the tempest encircling them, Sylas attempted a lighter touch. "You know this is a good group if you can keep track of who's plotting against whom," he jested, a ghost of a smile breaking through his concern. If only someone could set up a spreadsheet for this deadly social networking. Gwendolyn turned slightly, laughter threading through her tension like sunbeams through clouds. "Maybe I should," she said, shaking her head to gather her thoughts. The glimmer in her eyes suggested a truce with herself, but she quickly hardened again. "But a spreadsheet won't erase the resentment brewing here. We're in a power struggle, and I refuse to be a pawn." "Then let's change the game," Sylas said, a spark igniting between them. "We'll show them we're not just pieces on this board. I trust your leadership, Gwendolyn, but just promise me, when we build this future, don't forget who you were." Suddenly, the clang of metal pierced the air as emotions boiled over among the gathered factions. Jack and another player stood toe-to-toe, tension coiling tightly, their words dropping like molten metal, fingers curled into fists, ready for blood to shed amidst the manipulation of shadows. Yet even as the chaos loomed, Sylas felt the pull of something warmer between him and Gwendolyn. It was alive and crackling, an intimacy brewing like the steam rising from simmering pots, teasing with the possibility of affection amidst the storm. "Let's hold on to what we have," she murmured, raising her chin defiantly as the clash of voices pulsated around them. Together, we can forge our own destiny, not just survive it. And in that flicker of vulnerability, Sylas knew they would navigate this treachery as co-conspirators, not victims, determined to set their narrative in a game playing for keeps. Scene 9. Trust Issues. The dim, flickering fluorescent lights hummed with an unnatural rhythm, casting elongated shadows that danced across the cold, concrete walls of the makeshift command center. A wooden table, scarred and chipped, held crumpled maps and scattered notes, remnants of efforts to strategize their uncertain future. Sylas Archer leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his blue eyes reflecting both the chill of the room and the anxiety swirling within him. He rubbed the back of his neck, feeling the tension coil tighter with each passing moment. Why would they risk losing their pawns? It doesn't make sense, Gwendolyn Frost said, her voice sharp, slicing through the heavy silence that clung to the space. She pointed at the blurred ink on a diagram that represented their arena, the winding paths and barriers a cruel mockery of freedom. Because they think we're expendable, Sylas replied, his tone clipped. He pushed off the wall and approached the table, his boots thudding softly against the concrete floor as he examined the chaotic layout. We need to think strategically. We can't afford to. Think strategically? She interrupted, her frustration palpable. You mean play their game? What if their game is to keep us just alive enough to watch each other die? Gwendolyn's emerald eyes flashed, a tempest of anger and defiance brewing beneath her relentless exterior. Gwen, there's a line between naivete and idealism, he countered, a spark igniting in his voice. We were chosen for a reason. If they're willing to gamble on us, we use that to our advantage. Gamble? You mean we jump through hoops for our captors? Gwendolyn stepped closer, the air thickening with the charged energy between them. Her closeness sent an unexpected tremor through Sylas, but he swallowed it down, focusing instead on the emerging vulnerability in her voice. Don't you see? They need us to want to survive, if we can outsmart them. Outsmart them? Gwendolyn echoed, an incredulous laugh bubbling from her chest. It was a laugh drenched in dark humor and frustration, cutting through the tension like a knife. You're really willing to bet your life on a game of chess with a bunch of sociopaths? He searched her expression, looking for any sign of the fierce woman he admired, the one who would charge into battle armed with nothing but conviction. Instead, he saw doubt clouding her features, vulnerability peeking through the cracks of her carefully assembled walls. Gwen. Suddenly, a loud crash resonated from the entrance, causing both to jump. It was Marcus, one of the other contestants, stumbling in with an armful of supplies, his blonde hair disheveled as he struggled with the large backpack that clung to him like a stubborn child. I got more food, he panted, puffing smoke from his exertions. The humor of the moment cut through the tension, creating a soft distraction. Did you steal it again? Came Lila's voice, the petite medic leaning against the doorframe, arms folded, a sly grin tracing her lips. I hope you'd at least consider negotiating next time. Marcus puffed up his chest, attempting to strike a heroic pose despite the bag nearly toppling him over. A hero doesn't negotiate. Heroes save the day and then negotiate for food. Right, Gwendolyn sighed, rolling her eyes but unable to suppress a smile. She stepped back, the air around her cooling down slightly, letting the warmth of camaraderie wash over her. As long as you brought enough for all of us, valiant warrior. I'm a one-man army, Marcus declared, shaking his bag triumphantly. But as he unzipped the top, it let loose a cascade of granola bars, each flying out like confetti at a not-so-welcome party. Just what we need, Sylas smirked, turning to Gwendolyn, his earlier intensity dimming. An army of snack bars. Gwendolyn's laughter bubbled up, buoying the silence they'd left moments earlier. As laughter faded, a weight still hung between Sylas and Gwendolyn, a reminder of their earlier clash. They exchanged glances, the tension simmering just beneath the surface, charging the air with unacknowledged feelings. Look, she said softly, her voice steadier, whatever game they're playing, we need to be each other's strongest allies. Trust, Sylas. We have to trust, somehow. Then let's start by doing what they least expect, he replied, an ember of determination igniting in his gaze, and find a way to flip the game on its head. In that moment, as their gazes locked, an unspoken promise lingered, revealing the depths of mutual dependence, each a misshapen piece of a greater puzzle. pushing towards survival in a game neither truly understood. Scene 10. Betrayal unfolds. The air was taut, as if charged with the tension of uncertainty. A dim light flickered overhead, revealing streaks of dust suspended in the stale atmosphere of the warehouse. Sylas ran a hand through his tousled hair, frustration creasing his brow. His eyes scanned the shadowy corners. The chill in the room mirrored the encroaching dread coiling in his stomach. Lately, every moment felt like stepping through a minefield, and the allies he once relied upon now seemed as treacherous as the combatants in the arena. He paused, leveraging the silence to steady himself, but before he could voice his thoughts, Gwendolyn stepped into the light. Her presence broke the tension. Yet another layer of worry clouded her eyes. "What's going on, Sylas?" Gwendolyn asked, her voice a balm amidst their unrest. "You've been distant." "It's this game," he replied, anger mingling with despair. "There's something in the air. I can feel it, like we're being watched." She moved closer, her warmth palpable against the overwhelming coldness of the room. "We need clues, Sylas. We can't lose faith in our allies." Just then, a loud crash interrupted their moment. From the shadows emerged Theo, a man they once viewed as an ally but now seemed shrouded in suspicion. "Found something?" Theo exclaimed, his voice reverberating off the walls, excitement masking the tension. "There are maps detailing escape routes. I think I've figured out a way out of here." Sylas watched Theo intently, a spark of hope igniting within him. "Where?" Theo swelled with pride. "Follow me, you won't believe this." He beckoned them, eyes glinting almost maniacally, and Gwendolyn cast a glance of uncertain encouragement at Sylas. "Let's go," she urged. Navigating through darkened halls, they descended deeper into the warehouse, each step echoing with apprehension. Sylas felt the weight of Gwendolyn beside him, their bond now tinged with trepidation, crackled with unspoken words. They reached a hidden room, and Theo swung the door open, revealing a clandestine setup, drawings, clippings, and ominous notes plastered on the walls. "What is this?" Gwendolyn breathed, her eyebrows knitting together. "The game is much bigger." Theo replied, a sinister grin stretching across his face. "I'm going to be the one to expose it." Sylas squinted, reading between Theo's words. Something felt wrong, a discord in the melody of trust. "But at what cost?" "Just look," Theo insisted, thrusting a paper towards them. "They're tracking us, each move we make." Before Sylas could respond, the realization crashed. Flashes of betrayal flickered in his mind. "You've been playing both sides." "At least I know how the game is played, Sylas," Theo sneered. "It's about survival." An uncomfortable silence settled as the implications tautened like a drawn bowstring. Gwendolyn's fingers tightened around Sylas's arm. "You were never with us, were you?" "Alliance is fluid in a game like this." Theo rolled his eyes, glancing at the door as if recalling an escape route. "Get out of here if you want, but the real victory is in owning the chaos." The air grew dense. A palpable weight of betrayal pressed upon them. Gwendolyn stepped closer to Sylas, a protective instinct surging past the confusion. "You think we can trust anyone anymore?" Theo laughed derisively, an unsettling sound against the backdrop of their strife. "Trust? That's a luxury we can't afford." A sudden clang startled them. The door creaked under the stress, and in rushed Emily and Marcus, the sharp edges of worry etching their faces. "What's happening?" Emily asked, her voice trembling as she took in the scene. "Just sharing some enlightening maps," Theo replied smoothly, masking his persona with feigned charm. Yet Sylas could see the glint of deception lurking beneath. In a hasty motion, Sylas pulled Gwendolyn back. "I think we should leave." His heart pounded with the urgency of their circumstances. "Not yet," Gwendolyn insisted, resolute. "We can't turn our backs." Emily exchanged worried glances with Marcus before questioning, "What if he's right?" The air crackled with intensity. Sylas felt Gwendolyn's grip tighten on his arm, and in that moment, he understood the tightrope they were walking. Somber emotions flooded the room, fear, anger, despair. Yet, through it all, their bond flickered like a flame caught in a storm. "Together or nothing," Sylas said firmly, meeting Gwendolyn's solemn gaze. "Damn right," Marcus added, a hint of an unwavering resolve evident in his tone. "We don't let betrayal split us." Yet in that moment, uncertainty loomed larger than ever. As they grasped for unity, Sylas felt the unmistakable weight of betrayal swirl around them, looming like dark clouds rolling across the horizon, ready to rain down chaos. Despite the storm, hope fought to cling on, entwined in the complexities of trust and turmoil. The game had taken a darker turn, and the questions left dangling felt more like chains. In the battle for survival, betrayal could lead even the closest of allies down treacherous paths. And Sylas wondered, could he navigate this storm without sacrificing what was left of his fragile conscience? Scene 11. Test of Courage. A thick fog clung to the air, swirling around the various figures huddled in their respective corners of the decrepit warehouse, the once bustling structure a mere husk of its former self. Sylas leaned against a rusted pillar, his brow furrowed as he surveyed the somber assembly. There was a tension thick enough to slice through the chilly despair, and it echoed in the frightened whispers that floated around the room. Do we really have to choose? Gwendolyn's voice, low and steadied by a resolve that faltered just slightly, snapped Sylas's attention. The rules are the rules. Rosa, a fiery redhead known for her sharp retorts, interjected with a glance that could slice through stone. They don't care about our feelings, it's all about the game. Easy for you to say, muttered Eric, who leaned against the far wall with his arms crossed. He was fidgeting now, his eyes darting around as if the shadows could leap upon him at any moment. You're not the one on the chopping block. Please, Rosa shot back. You're not being sacrificed. We're just making a choice. Sacrifice is for heroes. Or fools, interrupted Ben, the sarcastic joker of the group, who attempted to lighten the mood with a quip. You know, like the ones who sign up for games like these. His voice was laced with a dry humor that only masked his real trepidation. The murmurs shifted into a low murmur of agreement from others in the group, yet Gwendolyn stood rigid, her green eyes alight with determination. We can't let this be about sacrificing one of us. If we do, we lose everything. Our humanity,